G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video. And here we go with a continuation of yesterday. So if you have not seen yesterday's video, I highly recommend you stop watching this video and go and watch the one from yesterday, because it kind of sets a precedent for this race. But we join back in on the action for the next round of FIA Nations Cup, so we're sticking with the next slot of the Mazda Roadster touring car race at Kyoto Driving Park Yamagiwa 2. Now, this is actually third slot, so I actually raced in all three slots. The second race was really not, there wasn't much to write home about, to be quite honest with you. I basically wasn't as strong at the start of the race and then essentially fell back, got stuck in a battle that I really didn't want to be in, and I just wasn't able to kind of recover that race, and I ended up actually losing points on my 230 that I finished up with on yesterday's video, and I think I got like 218 or 211 I think it was at the end or something like that. So I was really not happy, and I was going to leave it, but I kind of was persuaded, not even persuaded, but coaxed into thinking about going into third slot by PX7 Tezar, currently down in 10th. So I've actually struck up a bit of a camaraderie with him, and we kind of are supporting each other, which is nice. And yeah, he kind of coaxed me into thinking about it. So we've gone again in third slot, and it was actually at a great risk of having a fairly low points showing. But this is the qualifying. You know, at this point on the third slot of Oceania, with all of the really top fast players having already got their solid results for the night now not playing, I kind of expect to be fighting up the front here. I really want to be qualifying in the first three positions. So we are going to be trying to get a decent qualifying lap in as we're just sliding past someone at turn 1 on our opening of a qualifying lap. We find ourselves in the slipstream of Tez up ahead, so not a bad position to be in. He's fairly similarly paced to me, if not slightly quicker in some situations. So as long as I can grab his slipstream and just focus on trying to sort of take that into account in the braking, I will be able to improve my lap time by quite a lot, and that should help me sort of place higher up the grid, you know, with benefits of slipstream down the straights. There's a little bit of dirty air impact with these cars, but it's not so bad at all. It's not the only real place where it is a concern is the S's, so it is hard to follow another car through the S's. But we're just going to try and get a nice clean lap behind Tez. He doesn't get the best of the triple chicanes there, and because we are behind him, there's not really much we can do about that. We kind of just have to suffer with his mistake there, and we're just going to bump him up to try and sort of recover some speed using the slipstream that I'm gaining off the back of him. I don't get the best turn 10 either, not taking enough speed and not taking the exact correct line through there, but we are a fair distance back now. This is a good slipstream range to be, because we can still see a lot of the track, and we are still getting quite strong slipstream benefit. But you can see this is exactly what I'm talking about. Through the dirty air, this is the only place where it's really an issue, as Tez cuts the final of the S's there, and that's going to be really poor for him, because I think he picks himself up a penalty, and at this point he just completely backs out and lets me go in ahead. He doesn't want to lose any more time, and I get a bump from behind, and I'm not able to just commit to my power as I would normally like to there with the little bump from behind. So we're now running side by side up the main straight with whoever this car is. We still managed to qualify in third, provisionally third, with a 51.5. It's honestly, that's a really shocking qualifying lap, but we're going to go again and have a look at this sector split. We're 2 tenths up and purple, so we're 2 tenths up and quicker than whatever Ballistic Ben was able to currently put in on his first sector to currently provisionally pole his Mazda Roadster with a 50.7. So we are going to just try and keep with this lap and just make sure we don't make a mistake. We're coming up to the triple chicane. We know we lost quite a bit of time here getting stuck behind Tez, because he made an error coming through here. But as we chuck it over the third curb, get on the power, a little bit too much sliding on the exit, a little bit too much weight transfer, and the rear tyres just kind of let go a little bit, and we're down marginally at this point, 100th of a second down, or 200ths of a second down. And we're going to come through this right-hander. I knew Tez was right behind me, and he gave me a little bit of slipstream, so I was kind of thinking at this point that pending whatever this sector split was, I'm going to slow down and give him some tow, and I'm almost 2.5 tenths down. I didn't really anticipate to be able to improve this lap with Tez right behind. I thought, well, this lap is going to be no good for me. I might as well slow down and kind of return this favour a little bit. So he's already served a penalty. We know he served that penalty in his qualifying lap, so any little bit of assistance we can get will mean the world to him. So we're just going to slow down through the S's there and just give Tez a little bit of a tow heading up towards the line. Just make sure, looking behind to make sure we're right within his wheel tracks. Coming across the line, Tez does improve a little bit, but he is still fairly far down the grid with whatever time he said, a 52.7 or something. But look at this qualifying. Look at this grid, a 51.5 I set, and I'm third. No one really got in a solid lap, and you know, I can just basically thank my lucky stars for that. But before we get into the race, let's just once again enjoy the Nations Cup introduction. By no means is a 51.5 anywhere near fast enough to kind of be within the first few rows at all of top split, but I managed to snag myself third, so I was kind of just saved by the fact that nobody really got in a decent lap. So I guess with that done and dusted, you know, I can just thank my lucky stars for, you know, whatever led the entire field to not get their proper lap in. And we're just going to take it from third position and see how we go. And I will say right now, you absolutely want to watch this race. So make sure you get comfortable, get yourself some snacks, get yourself a drink, and just enjoy this race. Because coming into turn one, we've got Ballistic Ben here. I've not really raced him before, and he's stuck on the outside here. Ranger Oz goes in slightly deep, and we're going to just go past, so try and go past the pair of them. Ballistic Ben is kind of shafted on the outside. I was trying to leave as much room as possible, and there was just about enough room for two cars, but the line for Ballistic Ben was not really that right, and he lost out quite a lot. So we find ourselves with Ranger Oz, and I know the best chance I've got is to try and get this overtake done as early as possible. He covers off turn 4, and I'm not able to get this move done as the pack behind, someone's diving in from 3 car lengths back, as I saw on the radar there, and you can see where that gap is opening up already. We've got Stylish Fox up in third, so I've again not really raced him, and I don't think he's right on the pace of sort of myself and Ranger Oz. We're fairly similarly matched for pace, and Stylish Fox is not quite there, evident by that triple chicane, so I actually don't get the best of exits. Ranger Oz gets a much better exit, but Stylish Fox has lost a lot of time on the triple chicane, probably not quite optimising the cuts, and he's lost a lot of time. He's 9/10 behind at this stage, so before we're even halfway through lap 1, both Ranger and Oz have broken away, and this is essentially the race. We're going to try and have a 1v1 versus Ranger Oz for the entire duration of this race, and we're going to see how it plays out. We do have to, you know, keep a slight bit of attention sort of pasted on Tazar, because we know he didn't get his qualifying lap in, he didn't get the qualifying he needed, so he will potentially be elevating himself through the field. Right, but in terms of this fight up the front, until Tazar sort of, you know, brings himself into the picture, we're just going to be trying to focus all of our attention on Ranger Oz, basically. And what we've got to do in a combination like this, where, you know, the cars are so easy to drive, so it's very, very optimised in terms of each person's individual pace. As Ranger Oz slides in deep and gives us a switchback opportunity at turn 1, we'll come back to the point I was making, and he gives a little bit of room on the outside there, but he's got a slight overlap. We know he backed out of this in the last video, but in this particular case, with first position on the line, he does not back out of it, and I have to sort of take a little bit of a compromised line through the flip-flop. The gap behind's opened up even more, and Ranger Oz has managed to defend that first position from running slightly deep at turn 1. So, good bit of close racing there, and he's gapped us a little bit, so it gives us a little bit of a breather to just recompose ourselves and get ourselves calmed down again and pepped up for the next move to possibly be done. But what I was saying before, because these cars are so easy to drive, everyone can find pretty quick pace pretty easily. And in race conditions, two people with fairly similar pace are going to find it very, very difficult to try and get past, because most of the time when you're racing someone so similarly paced, you're either trying to get a slipstream move done down a straight, or you're waiting for a mistake. Now the straights here are not very long, and these cars don't really respond to the slipstream like sort of GT cars do. They don't have as much aero as GT cars, so the slipstream benefit, the difference between slip and no slip, is not as pronounced as it is in Grand Touring cars. So the slipstream moves down straights are kind of out of the question. They're not really going to happen. It'll help you stick with another player, but it's going to be difficult to try and get an overtake done. And then the second point I was making, because the cars are so easy to drive, mistakes are few and far between. So how do you get an overtake done without real slipstream benefits and without your opponent making a mistake? You've got to put the pressure on. Get them out of position on the track, control a situation. Look how much ground we gain at turn 1, where you actually slide a little bit deep, so that probably explains some of that gain anyway. But anyway, I interrupted myself. What was I saying? You got to get them out of position. You've got to try and control an overtaking situation and put them in the position that you want them to be in. Don't let them control you. And, you know, it can go vice versa. Ranger Oz can quite as easily be sitting there thinking, I've got to control Smokescreen whenever he finally does get up to me. So it's basically just about who puts their cars in the correct positions first. Because if you put your car in a position that your opponent can't put their car where your car is, they've got to be somewhere different. So basically you put your car wherever you don't want their car, and they will then be forced to be in a place on the track coming into a corner exactly where you want them. Look at that chicane. Look how much we cut that. That was like 2 wheels on the very inside of the curb and the rest of the car on top of the grass. And we kind of needed that because Ranger Oz was starting to streak out a little bit of a gap. He was over 6/10 behind at the end of the previous lap, and we've now closed that to under half a second. So that's much closer. It's a lot closer, in fact, and makes me feel a little bit more comfortable to try and keep touch with this first position. Look behind one more time. There's a penalty down the field, and the gap's opened up to 2.1 seconds. Tazar's got up into 5th, so we do have to keep an eye on that, but that comes later in this race. At the moment, I've just got to focus on keeping with Ranger Oz and not making a mistake. But what we've got to do is to make sure we can stick close enough through the sections of the track where there's no overtaking, so just get a better line and get a better run and get a quicker run, and then try and set them up for a move at one of the overtaking spots. Obviously a lot easier said than done. So we've set our fastest lap there, a 51.3. That's a decent race pace lap, and we've slid deep. Is that a word? Slid? We've slid deep into turn 1 once again, and that's actually put us in a pretty precarious position. Ranger Oz 7/10 ahead. Slipstream's range we know is 7.5 so we've got to get a very good turn 2. We've actually done exactly that. Leaped over the curb with all our might, using all of the available track limits to our advantage there, and we're back within under 6/10. So at this opening stage of the race, I think Ranger Oz has the edge on me, just as I'm trying to sort of settle into my rhythm and make sure that we're not making a mistake, and, you know, make sure we can begin to lap consistently without too much thought. Ranger Oz is kind of taking advantage, and at this stage, he is streaking away. However, strategy. We're just going to touch on strategy really quickly. If you haven't seen yesterday's video, you won't know the strategy. It's a no-stop on these sports soft tyres. Fuel is no worries at all. You've got enough fuel to almost do twice the race distance, so no saving required. In fact, I'm pretty much burning fuel. I'm keeping it in 4th at the end of the S's section coming up to try and burn off some fuel and just sort of decrease the weight I'm carrying around. So I'm trying to do that, but tyre wear can play a part. There's no real tyre saving that needs to be done. The tyre wear is not so bad that you need to tyre save to try and keep your car controllable at the end. Your car will just begin to develop a lot more understeer and a lot more oversteer towards the end of the race. But because it's a car with very little power, it's not a very powerful car at all. The oversteer is very controllable, and in fact you'd want a little bit of oversteer anyway. You'll see on the exit of some of these hairpins that I do, I pretty much pin the throttle on the apex and the car oversteers towards the exit, and I control it with my steering input. So we're going to grab the slipstream of Ranger Oz, and I'll demonstrate for you exactly what I'm talking about as we hit our braking marker. Let's make sure we don't slide too deep. That's a lot better. We get a bit more rotation there, and I've pinned the throttle there, trying to complete the corner, and in fact there was no counter steering there at all. I was watching my steering input, which is a little red dot going side to side just above the rev gauge, so it's all the way far right at the moment. And just while we've been talking about that, actually, we've got right up to the back of Ranger Oz within 2/10. So it's at this point where I'm trying to set him up for a move. So how do I get my moves done? That's an excellent question that I know is on the tips of literally everybody's tongue when they're watching my videos. It's really not, is it? You don't really care. You don't really care, do you? But anyway, I'm going to tell you anyway, what I like to do is stick into their slipstream and make sure my car body language is communicating that I want to fly down the inside to make them cover it off. And then make sure that I get them to cover it off so late that I can move back to the racing line and they don't have enough time to kind of respond before the braking comes up. So they're stuck taking an inside defensive line. I'm able to take the outside racing line, and therefore I get the much better run through the corner, and I try and get that overtake done on the exit. That's one of my tactics. My other tactic is to outbrake them. Just, you know, no bells and whistles needed there. No extra flamboyant, superfluous information needed around that issue. I like to try and go for a cheeky outbreak. As long as I meet the apex, it's considered clean in my books, and I'm going to go for it. But what we've got to do, the best dive bombing spot, in fact, is turn 1. So it's the longest straight on the track, the home straight, and you can get a decent exit. You can set yourself up for a fast exit out of the final turn. And you can see that's what we've done here. We've got a nice exit out of the final turn, and we've got the slipstream coming into turn 1. This is too far back. There was no way that move was getting done from that far back, but you can see we've closed in a lot of ground towards Ranger Oz, and I'm hoping at this point that, you know, with Ranger Oz driving quite quickly, and I'm hoping that at this stage with Ranger Oz driving quite quickly and trying to streak out a gap at the start of the race, that he's used a little bit more of his tyres than me, and that's, you know, I'm hoping that does come into account. But coming up towards the hairpin, you can see he's covered, and I've moved back to the left-hand side to try and take a better racing line. He can't move all the way over to the left before he has to begin to turn right to take the corner, and it's put him out of position a little bit for the corner, but he actually gets a much better exit. So he managed to lay the power down a lot better on those rear tyres, and he's just streaked out a little bit of a gap. But I've got the slipstream coming down towards the triple chicane as he takes the chicane. Let's see how we go through here. I leaped across there, and that was so close to a penalty, but I think I was so just about 2 wheels on the inside edge of the curb, and I was able to get through there penalty free. But we're still right behind Ranger Oz, just trying to look for where we can possibly get a move done. So based off this situation we find ourselves in, just on the back of Ranger Oz, just right on the back of him, less than 2/10 behind him, I'm confident that if roles were reversed, if Ranger Oz was behind me and we were just driving identically, I don't think that he would be able to pass me. And we're seeing a similar situation. It's fairly difficult for me at the moment to try and say I'm definitely going to win this, because Ranger Oz is putting up a very good fight. But this is the best chance. Look at this, a wide entry on the final turn, get the power down and touch the curb on the exit, and I've got a much better run down the straight. I've got the overspeed down the straight, and he's gone defensive into the corner. He gives me no option but to go over to the right hand side now. So the best chance I've got of getting this move done is to take the best racing line I can. And as we send it up into turn 1, I'm going to be looking to get the switchback on Ranger Oz as he sends it in a little bit deep. I'm looking for that switchback, but I'm not able to get it done. Too much oversteer on my behalf. And on the exit of turn 1, I'm now losing ground to Ranger Oz. So I've lost a couple of tenths from that little overtake attempt I had there. So I've just got to do the work again. I've just got to put in the work to get closer to him, work my way up to the back of him again, as he kind of communicates to me that he's going to try and go defensive into this turn 4, but he moves it back over to the left to try and take the right-hander, and he manages to take that corner okay. However, I think I've got the better run through there, because we're less than 2/10 behind again. However, we are coming up to a part of the track where there's no real overtaking maneuvers to be done, which is the triple chicane. It's so difficult to get a move at the triple chicane. Your best bet is to get a better run through the chicane and get the move done on the exit. But I actually get a pretty terrible chicane. The gap has opened up to it's opened up to just less than 4 tenths from just less than 2 tenths. So I've lost 2 tenths through that triple chicane, or that particular rendition of it. So again, still just off the back of Ranger. It's so difficult to try and get close enough at the correct point and get Ranger out of position enough to get a move complete. This track I've found also has a lot of left, right, left, right, left, right. There's very little like consecutive corners of the same direction to try and complete a move, so you can often sort of get up the inside a little bit, but the following corner favours the person that was then on the outside, the victim if you will, and that's kind of what we see at turn 1. So I can send it down the inside at turn 1, but it gives Ranger Oz the outside, and if he can hang it around the outside, it gives him the inside for turn 2. It's so easy to see how you can get stuck behind a car, and that's exactly what's happening here. He's looking to open up a gap. I go for this. Look at that. 2 wheels on the grass. Some people won't like that, and Ranger knows that I've got the inside and moves it all the way over to the right to give himself the best chance at trying to keep this first position here, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. I've got the move on the inside at turn 1, but Ranger was able to hang it around the outside. It gives him the inside for turn 2. Do we hang it side by side through here? Not quite. Ranger Oz takes that position. However, we get the better run up the hill. We're going to be using the slipstream here. He covers the inside. I'm going to move back over to the left to give myself the best chance of trying to get this move done. Just make sure Ranger Oz stops on the apex, and he does exactly. He kind of stops any potential switchback maneuver that I was trying to attempt at that particular corner, and he's managed to defend that position. That's awesome racing. That's absolutely fantastic. And as we're coming down into the triple chicane, I'm just going to back off just a little bit into the entry, and look at that. Oh my goodness. So much weight transfer. I almost cut the corner. That's the closest I've been to a penalty at that triple chicane, and I've, by some absolute miracle of the universe, I've managed to just avoid a penalty, and I've got no idea how that wasn't a penalty. That was such a high adrenaline moment, in fact, just coming off the back of that awesome side-by-side battle with Ranger Oz that we just completed, coming into the triple chicane, and I almost made a mistake, and that would have been a race-ending penalty, but we didn't get it, so we can move on and just once again thank those lucky stars that we're still in this fight for the victory here. Ranger Oz has streaked out his gap once again, 2 tenths ahead, and he's, as you can see here, running a little bit wider through the final turn to try and get the straighter, faster exit, because you can get on the power, get on the curb, and it pulls the car around the final part of the corner and helps you carry a bit more speed. But we find ourselves in this situation again. Ranger Oz ahead. I'm in the slipstream. He's opened up the inside this time. Perhaps he's sitting there thinking that he's confident he can defend an inside move at turn 1, but let's see if we can get this done. Trying to get on the power as best we can. I've used that inside curb beautifully, and I've slot in ahead of Ranger Oz. He tries to switch back over to the left to get some overlap into the following corner, and he actually does. He has got a nose there, and I wasn't quite able to take the full width of the entry to turn 2, and it's just compromised my run a little bit, but coming up the hill towards turn 4, I once again have been able to claim the inside, and this is where I can finally complete this move and just put a bookmark once and for all on this position for first place. And Ranger Oz has just managed to make a tiny bit of contact with my with my right back quarter panel, and then this slight left of turn 5 coming down towards the triple chicane has just relinquished, I think that's the correct word there, has just relinquished Ranger Oz to back off, and he's managed to drop to about 3.5 tenths behind. I've got the move done. So that's a crucial moment, and we've seen at the start of the race how long it actually took to finally get this move on Ranger Oz done. I'm confident that as long as we keep racing sort of to the same standards that we are, the same caliber, the same level of cleanliness, I'm kind of confident I can probably stay ahead. However, we know how much pressure I put on Ranger Oz, and he didn't fall victim to an error thanks to that pressure. The roles are reversed. I've got to now not fall victim to Ranger Oz's pressure, and you know, the way that he might try and attack may be different to mine. So I've just got to employ my defensive tactics now. So this race has turned very much from attacking to defending, and we will see quite quickly the differences in how I drive. I'm going to be looking behind a lot more, just making sure and keeping an eye on Ranger Oz and how he takes the entries to all these corners, because it could very much prove pivotal to the end result of this race. So my defensive tactics, we talked about my attacking tactics, we're now looking at my defensive tactics. So we saw it's sort of vice versa, the converse of my attacking tactics of trying to make an opponent go narrow into a corner. I kind of do the same with the defending, so I like to defend to the inside as you do, and when the car behind then pulls to the outside because they've got nowhere else to go, I follow them towards the outside of the track. They're on the outside of the corner, but I'm opening up my line as much as I possibly can, and that is allowed as long as I leave a car width on the outside for that car to be there. That's my best chance at defending. It opens up my line as much as possible, and I just have to make sure in that case that I stop it on the apex and sort of fend off any cutback tactics. But with the open road ahead, I don't have that exact immediate visual distraction that a car ahead has, so that may help me a little bit, but with the race coming to a close, with the tyre wear kicking in, it will become increasingly difficult to try and position my car and maneuver my car exactly how I want it, especially with the understeer that comes from these worn out front tyres. But coming up through the S's now, Ranger Oz is very, very close in the slipstream, and he's almost looking like he wants to hang it around the outside at turn 11. Not quite going to happen. He just has to fall in behind as we complete the rest of the S's. Turns 12, 13, 14. Make sure we don't cut turn 14, because that will give us a penalty, and that will be race over. And especially at these closing stages of the race, if I got a penalty now, there's hardly any of the distance, any of the time left in the race to try and claw back the distance of the time that I'll lose if I give myself a penalty. I move to the inside on the exit of the final turn, and Ranger Oz wasn't expecting it and doesn't follow me exactly here. So coming into turn 1, I was thinking about going defensive because Ranger Oz very much looked like he was going to send it, but I managed to just come into the corner just before Ranger Oz could get the move up the inside, and I've defended that from the outside absolutely beautifully. Ranger Oz wasn't quite able to get that done, and we've still managed to hold on to this number 1 position. So with the race sort of closing, my adrenaline and my stress levels and anxiety was starting to increase, because this was very much looking like I could potentially win this race. And you know, while this isn't the most competitive top split Oceania you'll ever see, the fact that I can call myself a top split Oceania race winner is a very good achievement to have in my books. And I think I actually have achieved a top split race win before at Le Mans in Group 1 of last year. I was directly racing Matt Simmons, but we'll come back to this race, because if we can replicate a finishing result like that, that will leave me beaming ear to ear. But Ranger Oz is putting up a very good battle. This is exactly kind of what I expected. We ran nose to tail basically for most of the race so far. Just me directly behind Ranger Oz. I kind of expected Ranger Oz to be able to keep the pressure on me. With the added assistance of Slipstream through most of the track for Ranger now, and I don't have it, my lap times have begun to dwindle. I'm dropping down into the 53s, and you know, I think potentially some of that might come down to the level of tyre wear we're experiencing at the moment. I was obviously going quite aggressive to try and attack Ranger, so I really wasn't considering tyres at all. So I've gone quite hard on my tyres. And, you know, while there's not really tyre saving needing to be done, if you do go extra hard, you will begin to suffer some extra understeer, and it will make it more and more difficult to try and get moves done. So as we're coming into turn 1, Ranger Oz pulls out to the outside. He has a slight overlap coming in towards turn 1, but I know I can defend it from this position here because I can brake quite late here. I've gone slightly deep, if anything, so I've just got to try and mash that throttle and get the best possible exit I possibly can. And he's got a slight overlap on the outside of turn 2. That's going to be a very difficult move to get done. However, what it does do is put me out of position for the run up through turn 2 and turn 3. I'm going to move it over to the right hand side as quick as possible, because the next corner is a right hander, and he's stuck on the outside of this. He's trying to sort of just hold me closer and closer to the inside of the track to try and hinder my line as much as he possibly can, but I've managed to just defend that as I slot in ahead, just ahead of his bumper, and once again successfully defending a potential move from Ranger that he tried to put on at the opening of the lap, but it's not quite paid off. But I know that I need to make sure to try and keep my cool, because coming up towards the end of this lap, it would be the beginning of the final lap, and I've got to make sure I can just defend even further to try and keep this position at the end of the race, because I've discussed before, you can hold a position through the whole race, but if you fail to keep that position right at the end, that's where it counts the most. In fact, that's where it counts, not even the most. It counts for all of it at the end of the race when you cross the line to meet the checkered flag. You've got to make sure you're in the position you want to be in. It makes no difference, it makes no impact on the race results, how far or how long in the race you've managed to hold a particular position, because if you crash on the last lap and you've been leading for most of it, there's absolutely nothing that it counts for absolutely nothing. Ranger Oz almost tries to get a move done at the final turn, and he's almost managed to get that done, but I've managed to keep the momentum up around the outside, so he is going to be looking to try and get this move done at turn 1, and I know coming into the final lap, I've got to make sure I keep the car defensive. So he pulls out to the right, and I move back over towards the right to try and open up my line as much as I possibly can. I don't quite squeeze him as much as I potentially could have, but I've got to stop it on the apex, make sure I get a good exit here. Coming up towards turn 2 and 3, he hasn't got the best of exits compared to mine, so it gives me a little bit of breathing distance. It just goes to show how close this race is when I'm calling 2/10 a little bit of breathing distance. But coming up towards the hairpin again, he's on the right, he's on the left hand side, he switches to the inside last second. I've got no time to respond to that. He gets it stopped on the apex. I've hung it around the outside as much as I possibly can. He's gotten the move bloody done. I was so impressed. My mouth was agape at that. I was like, mate, that's an awesome move, and if you end up winning this race because of that move, full respect to you. He switched to the inside last second, completely unexpected, caught me off guard. I've run wide on the exit of the chicane, and that's really put me on the back foot on this final lap. So what I've just finished talking about is what's happening to me. I've held the lead for like 3, 4, 5 laps, lost it on the last lap, and if we finish in this position, all the portion of the race that I led, it counts for absolutely nothing. So I've got to make sure that I'm able to hold the first position all the way to the end, but currently at this stage, it's not looking like I can do it. But the last opportunity I potentially have is the final turn, and if I don't get close enough on the exit here, I've got to try and sacrifice a bit. He defends into the final corner, so I'm going to run out really, really wide. Look how wide I am. I'm going to try and get on the power as early as I can. Right there, I've committed. Coming onto the curb on the final straight here, I'm going to be looking to go onto the left, and I've hit the bloody limiter. I've hit the limiter at the crucial moment at the end of third gear. You just heard the engine just absolutely cut out as I've touched the limiter. I had the run on the exit of the final turn, and just right when I really needed to get the run on the left-hand side of Ranger, I've hit the limiter in the high-octane, adrenaline-fueled situation. And I've relinquished myself. I've done it again. I've said relish instead of relinquish, but nevertheless, I've relinquished myself. I've confirmed my position for second. Oh, heartbreak. I should have won that race, man. But Ranger, I'm not sure if you watch my videos, but if you do, bloody good race, mate. And the move for the win at the end there, absolute. I was impressed. I'm impressed. Now, I don't want to go over the top, but me looking at that and being on the receiving end of that, it was such a top-level move, a really expert-level move. Switching to the inside with last possible second, completely unexpectedly. It looked like you committed to the outside, but you're like, no, I wanted you to move to the outside to respond to that and open up the inside for me, and you just switched to the inside and completely done me. And there was no response. I had no response at that stage in the race with the level of tyre wear there. I wasn't able to complete anything. And with the slight error, I would say that's probably one of my only major glaring errors in that race, is hitting the limiter on one gear change. And look at that. So your expert move and me hitting the limiter, the move more so, the limiter less so, in terms of which have contributed most to the result. It just completely consolidated my second, but it's all good. Now that race is recapped, 255 points I got for that second position there, and that's a fairly decent, it's a fairly beefy result, especially for second position in the third slot of Oceania. I was pretty happy with those points, given that I'd just come off the second the second slot with the 211 points or whatever. I was feeling very deflated after that, and I've managed to turn the night around with a cheeky third slot, and look at the race I got out of it. Absolutely beautiful, and I'll be thinking about the race for a long time. But wow, what a combination. Every time the Mazdas come up, especially at Kyoto Driving Park, it's absolutely wonderful. Last time it came up, I had an amazing 1v1 with Wogorigini. I've now had an amazing 1v1 with Ranger Oz, and then in the practice race, maybe to a lesser extent for about half the race, I had an awesome 1v1 with West Roads. Just fantastic combination. I'm always left feeling absolutely pampered whenever this combination comes up, because look at the racing we get out of it. Absolutely fantastic. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking now. This video is going to end up being 45 minutes long if I continue talking about how happy I am with the result. So that's going to round out this video today. So do hit the like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, and constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.